Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and keep the cat away from the console. We're arriving at episode 578. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. You guys do anything or watch anything in the interim here?
Well, we got up to Infinity War on our Marvel rewatch, but we had to break it into two parts because, well, tonight's a school night.
Is that it? You've just been watching Marvel films?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I snuck in a couple of oldies this weekend. Okay, so this was a fun story. So Mel had parties this weekend, and so Si and I were together, and it was too cold to really do anything. And inevitably, in one of these situations, I always try and tell myself, we're not going to sit down in front of the TV. You know, I will find something for us to do. We're going to do arts and crafts or play games or something. And she says, can we watch a movie? It's like, yeah, okay. So we wound up in front of the TV. And she says, I want to watch Teen Titans. I was like, but you've seen Teen Titans. I know you like it, and I don't mind it. It's a good one, but can we just watch something new? So we finally agreed that I would just kind of scroll and see if anything caught her eye. So I'm going down our list and just, boom, 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 boom. And landed on Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar, which has the two ladies riding a shrimp. And she goes, ooh, that one. It's like, really? This one? I haven't seen this. I don't know what it's about. Well, can I watch it? So I did a little bit of quick research, and it's a PG-13, but I was like, well, it doesn't look horrible. I guess we can start it and kind of see where we're at. I really knew nothing about this other than Kristen Wiig's in it. It is essentially two women of a certain age who go on vacation together to Florida and wind up having a whole series of misadventures, including new loves and doing all of those crazy things you do on vacation, like riding the inflatable banana. And that's not a euphemism. There's literally an inflatable banana in the ocean. They get dragged behind on a speedboat. Mm-hmm. And a supervillain who wants to destroy the town. It's a Saturday Night Live comedy. So think, Coneheads, Ladies Man. Think that level of humor.
Okay.
But it's essentially how Stella got her groove back if it had the design aesthetic from Barbie with the mentality level of an Ernest movie. I can't decide if this is the greatest thing ever or some sort of abhorrent, nightmarish, just wow. I'm still in this befuddled, I don't know what to think about this film. I loved it. We both laughed, and she was ripping. I was like, okay, well, I guess we'll call that a win. And then we got up, did a little bit, and just decided, no, it's too cold to leave the couch. So we bundled back up, and it's like, okay, what now? She says, we'll keep going. So I scrolled down, the list. Next thing that catches her eye, Bus Stop.
Bus Stop? I've never even heard of that one.
Yeah, 1950-something Marilyn Monroe.
Oh.
Huh.
And I went, really? This one?
1956.
Yeah. She says, can we watch this one? Like, well, same deal. Let's give it, 15, 20 minutes, and we'll kind of see how it goes. It's in black and white. I'm thinking to myself, we're not even going to make 15 minutes. Okay? She's riveted. Now, admittedly, Marilyn Monroe in a saloon gal outfit, I was riveted too. But have you guys ever seen this one?
Nope.
Glenn, you?
No, I've seen
this.
Okay. I've seen the stage play, so I know what it's about. But I've never seen the Marilyn Monroe version.
Okay, so Bo the cowboy comes from Montana down to Phoenix to be in the rodeo. He sees Marilyn, falls head over heels in love, and just decides, I'm going to take you back to the ranch and marry you. grabs her by the arm, throws her on the bus. He literally kidnaps this woman. And the rest of the movie is her trying to escape him while still kind of sort of going, well, you are kind of cute. Wow, the mixed messages from this that I had to then have conversations with Shy about, because it was right off the bat.
Doesn't age
Poe's
well.
not being very nice, is he? Oh, he's kind of a jerk, isn't he? Oh, and then they get to the one, and he's physically manhandling her and throwing her around, and I'm like, okay, let's Papa, we're gonna have a little talk at this point. And Shy's like, can we just watch the movie? I'm like, no. I kind of feel like it's my duty at this point to throw in the parental advisory and say, don't you ever let anybody handle you this way. You don't let them talk to you this way. You don't. Just know this is abusive, and you run from these people. Okay. But so yeah, I cannot recommend that one. Not a very good movie, but it was the movie fanatic in me is thrilled that not only did she pick something other than Teen Titans, but that she liked something other than Teen Titans.
Yeah.
So that's a huge win. But yeah, problematic movie. Would not have thought that for 1956.
Well, in 1956, it probably wasn't.
Well, different time only goes so far. You can't sugarcoat kidnapping. It's just kind of there.
True.
Keith, did you watch or read anything?
I watched Echo.
Mm.
Not once did anyone repeat themselves.
I feel lied to.
Dun.
How was it?
I enjoyed it. It was pretty good. It kind of ends with a whimper. I mean, it has a nice, spectacular ending, but it didn't feel like it really resolved much other than kind of finishing off some of the story that the show itself set up. But overall, for like the character, it doesn't really, like, it kind of advances her, but not really. But it's really well done and feels more like the Netflix Marvel shows than the other shows have so far, so it's got that going for it.
Well, that's good.
Only, but it was definitely worth the 5 episodes to watch, and the last couple of them are really short, like less than 40 minutes long. Oh, wow. So I appreciated that it was not drawn out, yet there was still a filler episode in the middle of it. I don't know how they managed that. Glenn, did you watch anything?
Oh, I got a few movies in. I watched Self-Reliance, which I think is directed by and starring Jake Johnson. And it's about a guy who's offered $1 billion to play a game, and there are hunters that are trying to kill him. And he has to go, 10 days or a week? I can't remember exactly how long, but he thinks he's got a loophole because they tell him as long as he's with somebody, the hunters can't attack him. And so spends most of the film he hires a bum to stay with him. Anna Kendrick's in it. He ends up meeting up with her. She's supposedly playing the game too. They meet on like Reddit or whatever. And at times you wonder if the game is real, and at times you're pretty sure the game is real, but it has kind of an interesting ending that I can't divulge without ruining things. But then I watched The Family Plan, which was that Mark Wahlberg film where he's a former assassin that gave up the business and met a woman and got married, and they've been married for like 20 years. And then apparently he's been hiding out, and the people that are hunting him find him, and so he has to take his family on the run. But he reluctantly doesn't tell them. He doesn't let them know until much later in the movie what's happening. So that you spend a good chunk of the movie of him trying to avoid these people that are trying to kill him, and he's putting his family in danger, and they don't know they're in danger, kind of things. And it's not a great movie. It's kind of just middle of the road. I I didn't hate the fact that I spent the time watching it, but it's not something I would ever watch again. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I finally got around to watching it. I'm with Sean. It's a good movie. It's just not what you wanted out of, the last outing for Indy. But it's a good movie. It's an enjoyable plot, and I think it's got a nice little heartfelt ending, I think. And then I watched Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which was really good. I really enjoyed that.
We are going on a journey, a very long journey, through the world of the Target novelizations in publication order. Every week, we are looking at a new book, talking about Terrence Dicks, Malcolm Hulk, and all our Doctor Who novelization friends. Whatever you do, keep turning the pages. This is Jason Miller of the Doctor Who Literature Podcast, a member of the Direction Point Podcast Network, and you are listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
This is Tim Treloar.
This is David J. Howe.
I'm Peter Purvis.
I am Sadie Miller. This is Lauren Cornelius.
Larry, it's Fraser.
For all things in the Doctor Who collecting world and beyond, the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. I'm Larry Van Mersbergen, your host, and I've been collecting for 42 years. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex on the Direction Point Podcast Network.
Well, let's move on to news.
Well, Variety is reporting that Millie Gibson's leaving the show after her first season, and that Virada Sethu will be joining as companion in Ncuti's second season.
And apologies if we did not say Miss Sethu's name correctly, but
yep,
we're not sure.
I could not find a good pronunciator.
I'm sure people in the UK that have seen her before probably are familiar.
Well, I've seen her in stuff. I've just not seen her name pronounced because she was in Andor, and
she was in Andor, yeah.
Jurassic World Dominion. So I've seen her as an actress, and she's a great actress. I just don't kind of like Ncuti until we get a pronunciation of the name. We don't really always know how to pronounce some of them.
I think the thing that's bothering me about this news is, number one, it kind of stinks that it came out because the season hasn't even started, and we're already getting news that, Millie's not around for season 15 or season 2. And so I think that's kind of, you remember about a year and a half ago when nothing was coming out about the Chibnall specials. And I was saying, well, at least all this stuff's coming out about RTD stuff. Now I kind of wish the RTD stuff would be kept a little more under wrap because, and maybe it's hard to do when you're shooting this far ahead because they're already shooting series 15 or season 15. So, but I think it's kind of crappy that the BBC's staying mum on this. Everybody's speculating that they dropped Millie Gibson, which I don't think is the case. I think she probably signed on for one season, or Russell had a plan, and maybe she does return periodically throughout that next season. Or
she pulls a Rose.
Yeah, or she just said, I have another gig, but I'll do this season and move on to my next project. I mean, she's 19 years old. She's got a lot of projects that ahead of her. So I just think it's kind of unfair that people are jumping on the and as we talked before the show, and Keith, you pointed out, it's just clickbait. It's a way to get people to click on people's articles or YouTube videos or headlines. Yeah. But I'm not bummed that, I'm a little bummed that we don't get her for more than one season, because I think that's kind of sad, because I think she hit the ground running in the Christmas special. I really, really enjoyed her. And I think her and Ncuti's chemistry and energy are really, really good together. So I'm looking forward to that. And I did read another article, I think it was Screen Rant wrote, and they talked about how she has the potential for becoming a Bill Potts or a Martha Jones or a, they had another example.
Donna Noble until specials.
Donna Noble's sort of a, and I agree with them.
You mean
they're just
Virada.
Kind of, who?
You mean the new companion?
No, Millie. They're saying that Millie's going to become that companion that everybody forgets. when you get in, everybody remembers Rose Tyler, everybody remembers Amy Pond, everybody remembers Clara Oswald. The reason being is because they were on for several seasons. They, established themselves because of the length of their run, and people remember them. I mean, it's not like we've completely forgotten about Bill Potts, but she's not the first companion that comes to mind necessarily in the last, 15 years. So, and I think that their point was that Millie has the potential of being that. And when you're coming out of the gate with a new Doctor, you kind of want that dynamic to last maybe a little longer than one season. And I kind of agree with them, but.
Yeah, I can see that argument, especially since the season's also shorter too.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to almost have a Dan situation where we get, barely get to know him. And then
Dan was the other one. See, I've already forgotten Dan. Dan was the other one they used, the other example they used.
Oh yeah, Dan.
But I guess I wasn't too surprised because I don't know if I really expected her to stick around super long. And Russell T Davies in his first run, Donna was around for a season, Martha was around for a season. It seemed like every season there was a new character coming on board, whether it be the Doctor, I know that was out of his control, or companion. It was just every season it was okay. Somebody new is joining the TARDIS. So I don't know if I just necessarily expected that, but I'm not surprised that might be happening again.
I have one word for y'all: spoilers.
You know something we don't?
No, I wish they'd stop spoiling stuff.
Oh!
I feel like
I thought you were saying you had some information, but you couldn't give it to us.
Yeah, the way you said that.
No, I feel like we reverted back to the old days where I was the one complaining about every leaked bit of information, going, I didn't want to know this. And then we kind of reached an equilibrium point where it just was what it was. And now the show is so far into production, so far in the future, that it's like, what do you mean he's already finished shooting? Oh, okay. Oh, we're going to find out who the next Doctor is next week? Oh, well, okay. I mean,
it does seem a little ridiculous that we're finding out stuff about the next season when the season after next,
season
when the next season. Yeah. But when you're producing it that far in advance, things are going to leak. And we don't know the context of how she's coming on board, or if it's true, or if she's just going to be a guest star. I mean, as far as we don't know what the source is saying that she's going to be a companion.
Yeah, very true.
Well, I think her... maybe not. I was going to say, I think her... what do they call them over there when your resume or whatever,
her CV?
Yeah, her CV, I think, is got most of the season on there, so... I think that's where I saw that. Maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of that as something else. But
not to be overly optimistic or give anybody false hope, but maybe they bring a second companion on. We don't know. It could be. I mean, there's not a lot of details from the quote unquote source, so it's easily possible that they bring on an additional companion during the time. And people assume they're dropping.
Yeah, that could be. Although I think
we don't know.
There's been on set reports of
the switch.
People seeing that she's the only one there, and Millie is nowhere to be seen in the as they're shooting season 15. So that's kind of how this kind of came about. Is they already started shooting season 15, and people were noticing that Millie wasn't anywhere around, and then it was. Somebody, I think the Mirror or somebody got an unauthorized confirmation that Millie's leaving at the end of. She's not even in the Christmas episode. She's done after this first run, and then Verada takes over for Christmas. So now I don't know where they got that information because, like I say, the source I think was still being anonymous, but. It sounded like it was on pretty good authority, so.
Time will tell.
Maybe it was someone that had seen her CV. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of that I saw. I've seen so many different articles on this. I can't even remember. Can't even remember all the details that I've seen, or what of it is true and what of it isn't. But time will tell. Time will tell.
Hey, I just updated my IMDb page to show Doctor Who for next season. So I bet they're going to replace the new chick with me.
I don't think I'd trust in IMDb.
Because that's how this works, right?
Wikipedia is accurate, though.
Well, of course, I trust Wikipedia. I mean, geez.
Yeah.
Not just anybody can change that. Time will tell. We'll see.
Only a couple of years and we'll find out for sure.
That's right.
Don't believe it till it's on your TV, folks.
Well, don't believe it till the BBC announces it, too.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, let's talk some conventions. We got a couple coming up. MegaCon in Orlando, Florida, February 1st to the 4th, featuring Alex Kingston there. So if you want to see her, check out MegaCon in Orlando. And then Teesside Comic-Con, Teesside University Students' Union in Middlesbrough, in the UK, is going to feature Colin Baker. So there's a couple of upcoming conventions in the next few weeks.
Hi, I'm Rupert Booth.
I am known as Paul Ferry.
And my name is Barry Williams. Together, we host Time Ram.
Time Ram's a cruel mistress.
It's a random number generator.
That also.
We roll a number from 1 to 13, and that's our doctor. Then 1 to 300 for the story, and then we ram them together. Even if it doesn't make sense.
Cruel, I tell you.
Time Ram, putting the wrong doctors in the wrong stories, so you don't have to.
You're listening to Traveling the Vortex.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson, Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to Traveling the Vortex.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
Let's move on to our review. Just as a primer for everybody, we are doing 2 stories that feature, or sort of feature, Edgar Allan Poe. We're doing a short story, The True and Indisputable Facts in the Matter of the Ram's Skull, which is a great name. Wish the story was better. And then Nevermore, which is a 8th Doctor series 4-3. So we don't have a synopsis for the short story, but let's just launch it.
No. Well, I have a somewhat synopsis. How about
let's do that, yeah.
Edgar Allan Poe has been invited by 2 friends to attend the seance at the house of Mr. R. The other guests are the Doctor, Ian, Barbara, and a few more people. I wasn't going to bother reading their names because they're not important.
No, well, sadly, Barbara.
Well,
Barbara and Ian aren't even that important in this story.
That's true.
Not even sure why they were there, other than so that Ian could question why they were there, and Barbara could fail to knock the candle over.
Wow, you
and
just
so you would know what Doctor
exactly
is there,
what I was going to say. This is why they're there, to scoff and say I can't move. That was pretty much it.
Well, Keith, you want to go first?
I don't know if I have much to say about this one. It It was okay. It doesn't really give us much. Even, I guess I had higher hopes about a meeting between Edgar Allan Poe and the Doctor, and this kind of just falls into yeah. It's there. It is what it is. It's got a nice format to it. I like the fact that it's written as if it's Poe's last, description of what happened. But it also kind of ends on a downer,
Well,
he writes his diary page and then he goes and dies.
Yeah.
So it's not only is the story kind of meh without a good explanation of what's going on, it ends on a down note.
I'll tell you, I will say this. It's a good story. It's not a good Doctor Who story.
Yeah, I think that's probably the problem more than anything else.
That's a very good way of saying it.
Had the Doctor and Ian and Barbara not been there, and this was just a short story that I'd picked up, it's really got a neat atmosphere. It's got a really tense horror aspect to it. I love the fact that it's Poe. I love the fact that it's... I got the impression that his death was much later after this. They just happened to find this after, because I got the impression that the events that happen in this to Poe are sort of what paints what influences some of his writing. Things like The Pit and the Pendulum and The Raven and The Black Cat, things like that. I was under the impression that this kind of is what influenced some of those different stories that he did write in fiction. And that before he was writing things that were a little more milquetoast. And then after this incident, maybe even some of his poetry that was more, along the lines of romance and things like that he wrote in his early days was prior to this. And then this is what really kind of brought the macabre out in his stories. That was the way I took it. I may be wrong, but
I like that interpretation, but I did not get that interpretation from it.
Because I think that the coda on this was written by somebody else that explained that they had found this document, and then they were saying that, Poe had died. I thought that was kind of the way they had been. But anyway, but from that perspective, it's a really kind of neat story. I liked it for what it was. Unfortunately, by putting the Doctor in there, and not even, the Doctor doesn't do much. I wanted the Doctor to be able to save this girl, although I got the impression from the story she was already well gone and possessed. She just had this, other half of this demon in her. That's why she was the one that was invited. It wasn't like it was some innocent little girl. This girl was already possessed because she came in and reacted to that skull the way she did. But I kind of wanted the Doctor, if the Doctor's going to be there, I want the Doctor to save more than just, the party there that isn't doing anything but sitting there watching this in horror. I wanted him to either save the Doctor, or I wanted Ian to maybe even chastise him more for putting them in this situation. I wanted more of a conflict maybe between Ian and the Doctor as to why the Doctor felt necessary to even be here. And the Doctor, I think, in his own way, justifies it by... it was to prevent an evil from coming through. And that's what he ended up doing ultimately, but it just it seems really weak in the sense of how the Doctor interferes. It was cool that he was able to get the cognac on there, but then Barbara could have had a heroic moment as well, but couldn't move. And so they give it to Poe, which, is our central character to this story, or at least our narrator, but just putting them in it just didn't work. And so just having them there takes me out of the story a little bit, because I'm frustrated because they're not playing the parts that I think they should play in a Doctor Who story. And so again, I think had this story not had them, it's a good story, but with them in it, it's not a good Doctor Who story.
Yeah, unfortunately, it does look like, because they put the date at the top of October 2nd, 1849, and he passes away October 7th, 1849.
Yeah, that's true.
So it was I wish I would have liked the story a lot more had it not been couched around his death. Mm-hmm. I think it would have been a great reason, an explanation of why Poe was the way Poe was. I think that would have been a brilliant way to tell this story.
I almost thought for a minute, had this gone the way that that Glenn was interpreting it, that this is the event that's responsible for kickstarting, you know, some of these events, that maybe we were going to get a Vincent and the Doctor kind of scenario, that Poe, you know, can actually see these things happening, and Poe's the one that knows what's up, and that he's the reason that the Doctor's there, that they've come to do something to you know, assist Poe, or, you know, prevent Poe from being killed because he has to tell all these stories. But it ultimately all kind of came to just be reasons.
Yeah, right.
And he's already written everything, and now he's going to die, which, okay, explains the mysterious stranger in the cognac, but that's about it.
Who wrote this one? This was Mark Michalowski. I'm not sure if we've read anything that he's written before, have we?
I don't think so. Name does not ring a bell. He's written other stuff, though. Well, he's done some main range stuff for Big Finish. Well, we've listened to Casualties of War, right?
Okay,
we listened to 45.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the stories in 45.
Right,
so.
right. Well, he seems to be a Big Finish. Well, he's done some past Doctor adventures as well, so he's done some prose as well. Interesting. Yeah,
it was written really well, and
I
thought, well, it captured Poe's voice, I thought, pretty well too.
It's written very much in Poe's style. Not it doesn't wordsmith it as much, but I wouldn't expect Poe to do that when he's writing about an actual account either. So.
Right. Yeah, a journal account of what happened.
Well, let's move on to our next one, which is we're finally, as Sean is probably super excited, we're finally getting back into our 8th Doctor adventures. Again, this is season 4 and story number 3. So, Keith, you got a synopsis?
Yes. A bizarre manifestation in the control room forces the TARDIS onto the Plutonian shores of the irradiated world Nevermore, whose sole inhabitant is the war criminal Morella Wendigo, a prisoner of this devastated planet. But the Doctor and his new companion aren't Morella's only visitors. Senior Prosecutor Uglosi fears the arrival of an assassin after the blood of his prize prisoner. An assassin with claws.
Bum, bum, bum.
Go ahead and go first, Sean.
I liked it. No, the first time I listened to this, I didn't get the connection until they spelled it out for me. Nevermore, and then there's Raven Guards, and I was like, "Oh, you're literally doing a Poe thing." Okay, cool. But I've listened to it several times since then, and I really love just about everything about this story. I love the concept that there's this genocidal madwoman that committed just a genocide, you know, killed everybody on this planet with this biological weapon, and that her
what's great is she isn't there. What's also great is she's not really a madwoman. She had I don't want to say justified, but she had rational reasons to do what she did.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just that she was mad. She was power hungry, and she wanted to turn the tide of the war in a certain direction, and it just didn't work out in her in her favor.
The story does.
That's what makes her so interesting.
That's just it, though. The story does a good job of starting you out, making you think that she's this mad woman, and then they do kind of explain that there is a reason or a rationale for her actions.
And ironically, her prisoner is the madman.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Because they don't justify or explain why his fascination with Poe is. And I kind of wish we had something to tie it back other than, we thought this was a cool gimmick for a story, so this guy's obsessed with Poe. But that being said, the Poe aspects of it I thought were really cool and very cleverly thought out.
Yeah, I like the fact that she's not the stereotypical mustache twirling, nothing in the world can stop me now villain, and that her motives, at least in her mind, were rational and made sense. And those are the ones you got to watch out for. because you can almost side with them, and then you have to kind of stop and think, no. You killed a whole planet full of people. You're still the monster here. And I love the fact that the doctor goes through that he's like, I'm not helping her. We've got to get out of here. She's a loony bin. She's a monster. She's this. And then by the end of the story, take the helicopter and go. Just go. So I thought that was very cool. I like to say, I love the trappings. I love the fact that she's in this house that's part of this planet, that it's very well appointed. Doesn't feel like a prison, and yet it is.
House of Usher.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it made me want to read more Poe as I got into it, and as because I'm obviously, I think everybody's probably familiar with Quoth the Raven, but I'm only kind of glossy, peripherally aware of the other stories that are referenced here. I think the only one that I've actually read is Telltale Heart. So this was a big, I need to get into this. This is really kind of cool sounding and whatnot. I think Tamsin is, and I was concerned about you guys, so you'll have to let me know how you fared on this, because being thrown back into it after such a long hiatus, even I was a little disjointed as to, okay, where are we in the timeline? Oh yeah, he was auditioning for companions, and Lucy had left and Tamsin had joined. Okay. And this is their first, soiree together. And I don't know that she acquits herself very well.
Well, considering this is her first adventure, and at some point at the end the doctor just says, "Go to the TARDIS. I don't have time to deal with you." I think she does pretty decent.
Yeah.
This is a fairly big, fairly heavy, fairly forced upon them story. That to be your first adventure in the TARDIS, that's one heck of a deep end.
Yeah.
But how many companions get sent to their room? I mean, really.
Right.
Yeah, but that just also shows how serious the situation was, more than her capabilities, because she's the one that argues for what's her face's behalf, because she saved her life. I mean, I think she shows a lot of great potential as a companion and sees things for how they truly are, as opposed to what it appears on the surface.
Yeah. I also think that the story doesn't give her much room to be introduced as well either. And so I think I didn't put a lot of negativity on the companion, because I just felt like the story didn't give her enough showcasing in order for us to learn more about her or get to know her better. And so not that the story was bad. I'm not saying the story's bad, but it just feels like maybe had we had something a little more Tamsin heavy right after her joining the TARDIS in the last one, I sort of think that maybe I would have felt better getting to know the character. But unfortunately, this situation in this story doesn't allow for that. So I think it's kind of excusable that, we don't get to know a lot about her yet. So I'm hoping that changes.
Yeah, it kind of takes a page out of the classic series more so than the new series, and we tend to think of this run of the Eighth Doctor as more new series leaning, and so I think that's probably why we would want more of Tamsin and more of her character in it, because we're used to the first full story with a companion being much more focused on the companion than what this one is.
Yeah. That's true. I think my favorite element of this is the reveal that this monster is, his guilt that has manifested through these creatures.
You talking about the prosecutor?
The prosecutor.
Yeah, okay.
And admittedly, it's stolen from a Forbidden Planet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Monsters of the Id, which in itself is based on The Tempest from Shakespeare. So we're kind of transposing another writer's work into this. But I love Forbidden Planet so much that if you're going to steal and you steal from that,
steal from the best.
I'm right there with you going, yeah, cool. Take it all, man. Make them invisible. Cool. Because I love Forbidden Planet. And so this one had a very Forbidden Planet vibe to it, with the fact that that's where the monsters are ultimately coming from, is from his subconscious psyche.
It's funny. I hadn't even made that connection, but you're right. And I love Forbidden Planet too. Still didn't make the connection.
I love that movie. It's funny. I didn't until this listen through. I hadn't made that connection before. But then as I got further into the story, got into the second part, and things started to ramp up, and my brain kind of caught up, and I was like, oh yeah, that's where this is going. I'd forgotten that. And then it suddenly popped in there. I was like, wait a minute, you've heard this before. And I was like, oh yeah, well, that's cool. That makes me like it even more.
I'm kind of looking ahead here, but they have the flashbacks of the Eighth Doctor talking about his encounter with Poe as the Eighth Doctor. And I was looking down here in the continuity, and the dates don't quite work, but it says, according to a document Poe wrote, which he had first met the First Doctor 2 days prior to his encounter with the Eighth, which makes sense because his encounter with the Eighth is right before his death. And so the First Doctor was there just a day or days before, and then in his 8th incarnation, he revisits Poe again. Although, unfortunately, his mental state is already in dire need at that point. So,
well, what's clever is that short story then explains why his mental state is the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of what he saw in that story.
Right. So that's kind of cool. I hadn't really thought of that because I read them out of order. If I had read the first one, if I had read the first story, the short story first, I might have made that connection better too.
Yeah. It almost makes you wonder if maybe the First Doctor wasn't completely successful in preventing something from coming through, and that it latched on to Poe and caused him to go crazy. Perhaps we need another Doctor to visit him in the sanitarium.
Or maybe
much longer.
Yeah, I was going to say, or maybe the Doctor had some guilt as to the situation he'd put Poe in, and knowing that he went mad at the end, maybe he felt like he needed to be there as some sort of support. I don't know.
What do you guys think of the fact that his final notes smeared and wasn't anything?
Yeah, that was clever.
Yeah, very much so. Again, I was kind of thinking the first time I listened to this, I don't remember if I listened to this before we got Vincent the Doctor or if I revisited it afterwards. One of the two. But it kind of feels like that's maybe where they're going, is that Vincent saw all these things with, Space Chicken, and that maybe Poe was tormented by demons that were extra dimensional or something, that he was trying to alert the authorities to actually being there. But then it winds up being just ravings, so we don't know what may or may not have been. And I love the fact, while there's a part of me that is screaming and pounding fists going, no, I wanted to know what the deal was, there's another part of me that loves that it's open for interpretation and that you just kind of get to decide which way you want to play it.
Although I do have a hard time believing the prosecutor would just be okay with it being ravings and smeared and not getting to know what it is. In his final moments of life, he was like, "Oh, that's hilarious!" I
don't think he really thought it was hilarious. I think that just kind of encapsulated how far off the reservation he had gone.
Yes, that's the way I took it.
Yeah,
just cackling was all he had left.
He sort of went the way of Poe.
Yeah, he definitely did.
Well, and you have to wonder, I think Poe is one of those writers that it's very easy to admire the work that he did, but you have to really wonder about the people who, like the prosecutor, would devote themselves to the work, because so much of it is first person.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of it is written from a standpoint where he's attempting to put you, the reader, in these positions of, the pendulum swinging towards you, and so much of his writing is done in that style that if you were really fanatical about his work, you'd kind of go, you're kind of a crazy person, because why would you want to subject yourself to that over and over and over again?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a definite tell. But no, I just really like this one, and I love Paul McGann's portrayal and how he reacts to things, and he's got so many wonderful little glib moments followed by so many somber oh holy crap moments.
Mm-hmm. I sort of feel like too it's another fresh start for the Doctor. I think we went through this kind of period where he had so much time that he was away, and he'd almost had another amnesia moment because of what had happened in the events of I can't even remember the story that was in season 3, but
Morbus.
Yeah, Morbus. So
yeah.
we had kind of gotten into this little kind of aloof and disconnected Doctor, who I think sort of becomes grounded again there towards the end when Lucy's leaving, I think she was sick, wasn't she? And so then I kind of felt like I was not enjoying the Eighth Doctor at that point, but this really kind of feels like a return to form. And it's not that I think that the Doctor can't, grow as a character and be different and evolve, but it's really kind of refreshing to have that familiarity back and have the Eighth Doctor kind of as we know him and very much in character with the way that he had been in the past. And so I thought it was a nice return to form, at least for me, especially revisiting and coming back to this. Because I might have not enjoyed it as much had he not been kind of back on form.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about the Orbis stuff, so it was, I would agree. It was nice to have him back in full form. I also like the fact that the Ravens weren't actual. When they first showed up, I thought they were going to be anthropomorphized birds.
Yeah,
and I'm glad they wound up being robots. I thought
that
was a clever touch.
Yeah.
Especially once you later discover that it's not like they're native or anything. They were built by this madman who loves Poe so much.
You thought you were going to have a problem with anthropomorphized birds.
I just thought, oh great, now I'm going to hear about it from Glenn.
Now, we are on the same page here, where we're fully convinced that they are Raven-shaped robots, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
The cover of the CD or the whatever actually shows the head of one above the Doctor.
It's definitely a Raven-shaped robot.
Yeah, for sure.
Even just from the audios alone, the descriptions of them.
Yeah.
Well, and they even refer to them robots, and then initially refer to them as just Raven. So
right.
I think he even calls them Raven robots at some point. So.
Nope, good stuff. I'm kind of glad to be doing the Eighth Doctor stuff again, and we got some more fun Eighth Doctor stuff coming as well.
And I like the teases they gave us of, the strange little man, time traveler that they referenced. I'm looking forward to finding out kind of what happens with that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's setting something up.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Forgot about that till you brought it back up.
Stay tuned.
All right, well, speaking of which, what do we got coming up on the schedule, Sean?
Well, coming up next on the schedule, we're going to take a look at what never was or what could have been, starting with Doctor Who Journey into Time, a lost radio program pilot written by none other than Malcolm Hulke, that was performed once and then only the script remains, and then was re-performed as a part of a fan recreations. We're going to take a look at this. I hesitate to say lost classic.
It might be once you hear it. Maybe you'll decide
it might be.
Yeah,
it might be.
I think, and I hadn't done a lot of research on this because I wanted to kind of wait until I listened to it, but I believe this was a Cushing audio. I think Cushing had actually recorded this radio play as well. So as the Cushing doctor. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Possibly the third movie?
No, because the third movie would have been the Mechanoid, Daleks versus the Mechanoids.
Yeah.
Which was what the chase was, or parts of the chase.
You ever think to yourself that somewhere in the multiverse is a universe where those movies became huge and that's the Doctor that everybody remembers now?
Not really.
Like the show got canceled and that was it, but the movies live on and Peter Cushing is, the biggest thing ever.
Not really.
Nope, never once. He's great, but don't get me wrong. But...
just a few dimensions over.
If he'd gotten really popular, we might not have gotten him in Star Wars. So.
That's true. And then we'd be doing a special talking about who would we have cast as Tarkin.
Right.
Would have been a whole separate podcast. We will follow that up with a look at the just released animated Underwater Menace. Obviously, we've reviewed the story before, but we'll be taking a look at the animation and the presentation of that. Excuse me. Along with something else I'm excited to get back into, Big Finish Mainline, The Crimes of Thomas Brewster, and the return of Evelyn to my ears, which excites me greatly.
We're bringing back all the old favorites.
And something borrowed, something blue, something old, something new. We will do a companion archive on Kariz,
who is also returning to the fold.
Is returning, but apparently has some new material with Sontarans versus Routons. And we'll be looking at the first installment, The Battle for the Giant's Causeway. And then 2 round trips. I'm not familiar. Oh, they're short trips.
Short trips, yeah. Those were
2 short trips cities then, after midnight and before midnight.
Right.
All of that and more yet to come.
And then I do want to mention a few weeks ago we did a episode on the Cubicle 7 RPG games. We did an unboxing. You got an audio version of our unboxing of Doctors and Daleks, and now Sean has done an excellent job putting together our video, so you can actually now see our video on travelingthevortex.com, or you can also go to our YouTube page and find it there, so you can watch us open it. You can actually get a little better look at what we're talking about, and thanks again to Cubicle 7 for letting us do that. You can find us at our website, travelingthevortex.com, and if you get any value out of this podcast, consider putting some value back into it. You can do that by clicking on the Patreon link and support us there, and also be sure to give us 5 stars wherever you subscribe to this podcast. It certainly helps get us up there in the ratings. And make sure you join in the conversation on our listeners forum on Facebook. You can also find us on Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, and TikTok. Oh, I think I've resurrected our Tumblr page as well, by the way. So heads up.
Ooh,
stuff
nice.
coming there too. Anything else we need to discuss before we close this program? If not, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.